Hi, I'm Bucky, and I'm here today with my friend Sal, and we're going to talk to you about finding the community in comics.
Ooh, I'm Sal, obviously. There's only two of us here. Um, so we're just going to be talking about how we found our community within comics, how that's kind of then gone into real life, as in Thought Bubble and other conventions, and how that's kind of translated into our daily life, especially around the pandemic, because I feel as though there's so much pressure at the moment to be like on all the time, always on social media
Mm,
and being like, woo. And the people that I've met in comics and at Thought Bubble and at other conventions have actually been a big support for me during the everything at the moment from like March.
yeah, yeah. And for me, especially, it's, I think a lot of people are having that thing between I only exist at the moment if I'm on social media, and oh my God, I can't be bothered to do anything. I want to sleep all the time.
Yep. Yeah. And that's the hardest thing because finding the energy to be around people in real life is hard
Mm,
anyway, because
mm,
it's a performative thing of being yourself and especially around people that you look up to. So when I first met you last year at Thought Bubble, it's like, oh my God. And I just didn't do because I knew you, but because we hadn't met, it was like, how can I not be really awkward and nice? Like, not, yeah, how
yeah.
did I come across that wasn't like, oh God, here's just another person annoying me. Not in that
I,
way.
I, I was more surprised that anybody had any conception of who I was in any way.
You don't want to be deceived. That's what it is.
Yeah, I just didn't. I've never thought of myself as like, oh, people are listening to what I'm saying. I've always just been like, I'm just going to shout into the void, and if people listen, that's a bonus.
The void
Um,
shouts back. That's the thing. And
well,
that's
yeah,
community.
apparently,
That's community.
yeah, there you go. And especially for me, because Thought Bubble last year was my first Thought Bubble, and it came about almost exactly 1 month after I'd shut the shop. So it was an interesting trip.
Mm. Yeah. See, I didn't, I knew that things had happened, but I wasn't so connected that
Mm,
it made the connection in my head. I was sort of like,
yeah,
oh, that's really sad. But now that I know everything that it was and the people that were involved, because you made that video of
yeah,
the dark side thing, and I was like, oh. And it was hard, but now I see how hard it was, even though I wasn't.
yeah, yeah. And
Did you
that
do
was
you, go on.
just to, I think, to give folks a little bit of background. I owned and ran Darkside Comics down here in Chelmsford in Essex, and I had it for 5, 6 years. Oh my God, how could I forget? This is because I took codeine just before we started recording for a headache, and my brain is
Same.
made of like scrambled egg. Um,
You
six
mean
years.
codeine? And I was like, coding? What are you, a website?
No,
What new thing have you
codeine.
tried?
Codeine, the drug, the lovely drug. Um,
Mhm.
no, drugs are bad. Don't do drugs unless you want to. It's your body. Anyway, so I had Darkside for 6 years, and that was a comic shop for those who don't know. But it was a lot more than a comic shop, as cheesy as that sounds. It became this like insanely amazing community that kind of transcended selling comics, although that was obviously a major part of it. The community was what really made it something like incredibly special. And late last year, I was essentially forced to close the shop. I've done a whole video about the subject, but there were a multitude of reasons that essentially came down to my landlord was doubling the rent, which was insane because it was already pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Um, there was stuff happening in the comics industry, which again is like a whole topic by itself. Essentially, a lot of things that were completely out of my control. So I had to close like around the 6 year anniversary mark. And then Thought Bubble, of course, was in November. So a lot of my trip to Thought Bubble was A, trying to make myself feel better, but B, it was also difficult because I didn't know whether it was just going to be lots of people kind of having a bit of a pity party. And while it's lovely to have people that cared and asked and stuff, you always worry that people are going to give you that sort of like, oh, look.
Like the pat on the back, and you're just like, oh.
Yeah. You're just like, can we just not talk about it? But luckily, everybody was amazing. I had to tell a few people that it had happened, which wasn't super fun. But for me, what could have been kind of a difficult situation was actually lovely, mostly due to the community vibes around Thought Bubble, and just how it was, and being able to meet creators and stuff there that I had known for years through the shop, but never had the chance to meet before. So that was major.
Were any of those people on the panel with us? Or you just knew of them?
I just knew of, Jack I've known for years. Joe I've known for a while. The others I met that weekend.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Joe Glass.
Yeah.
Sorry, my brain went woo. Yeah. So for those of you who weren't there last year and who possibly missed the panel, I'm a volunteer at Thought Bubble. I've been doing it for 3 or 4 years now, and it's basically my whole life in November. But we did a panel last year called Life Isn't Binary, and it was all around, I moderated it, and we had some really lovely guests talking about non-binary representation within comics. So we had Rosemary Valero O'Connell, Joe Glass, Jack Lawrence, Steve, and I apologize, Steve Stavakis. He said he was going to tell me how to pronounce it. And there was so much going on that my brain is like, I just completely forgot. So I'm sorry, Steve. And Eve Greenwood.
Eve, yeah.
I really hope I didn't miss anyone. It was a really nice panel actually, and it was on the Sunday, I think around 3 or 4. So it was in the afternoon, and the sense of togetherness in that was a lot, because I was trying to like corral everyone just before the panel started. I was trying to corral you. And I think we just kind of went into the room, and I was like, okay, we all have microphones, we're going to ask some questions and go. And then it was nice. It was just like a nice discussion, and everyone was very welcoming and respectful. And it was one of those things where at the end I felt like a weight had got off my shoulders, but also all the people in the room in the audience had the chance to be like, oh, that's really cool. My favorite comic creators and people. Thing that hasn't really been talked about before. Yeah,
it was like, I was hopeful that people would come as well, but I was like, even if there's like 5 people there, it'll be fun to do.
We're gonna give them a show.
And then when we got there and you were like, the room is full, I was like, oh. I was like, people are actually here and want to listen to this and are choosing to do this with their free time. Okay, cool. And it was awesome actually how many people turned up for it, and I felt at least
was
were like
outside the door.
And I caught people like taking notes and stuff as well, and I was like, that's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Nice.
That's I mean, I know that Thought Bubble has had panels on other years. I think, I don't want to say since the beginning, but I know it's been a fairly consistent thing. And the move over to the convention center was nervous. Well, I was nervous because usually I think they have the panels in I think it's a town hall, because that's where they had the Gerard Way one back in 2000 and
I nearly came to that one.
18. There, it's really, one time that I saw it, because I was volunteering, so I was kind of all over the place, but I was in the town hall with a couple of other people that I knew, and I knew that his presence was there, but I didn't, it was kind of like looking at
sensed him.
Because My Chemical Romance, obviously huge, I don't know, a huge thing.
You just heard the first note of Black Parade and you were like,
and I was just like, oh my god. But the one part that really caught me off guard We'll come back to the topic. But he was walking past me in one of the halls with a couple of the volunteers, just in case, because of the fans and stuff. And I remember looking at him and I was like, why does he look familiar? Oh my God, it's Gerard Way. And I'm just, just had to like, it was literally like, I was just watching him. And then he looked at me and I was like, ugh. And then I immediately like pulled up my phone and I was like, hey, good friend from school who really liked My Chemical Romance with me, Gerard Way just walked past, blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, professional. That's the thing with Thought Bubble, is that you get these like really cool, famous, interesting people, and they're really cool.
Yeah.
And that for me has been the nicest part of Thought Bubble, is that everyone is just welcoming and chill, and there is a sense of just friendship.
It's so nice to be able to like have these people that are famous in whatever circles. I think people can be famous to you even if they're not necessarily famous to someone else, but people that you look up to or whatever, but everybody's all mixed in. There's no like hierarchy of like, well, the small creators are over here and the big creators are over here. It's all mixed in, and it's basically encouraged to go up and chat to them. And I think that's so good, because I think as soon as you start separating them into like, well, here's the famous people, it then becomes, I think, a lot more sterile, and you instantly lose that community by basically putting all these people on a pedestal. And that was one of the things that both me and my other half, Katie, were like showering the convention with praise for, of just like, we love that everybody's mixed in and everybody's chatting and everybody's friendly with everybody.
Yeah. I mean, I know that when Thought Bubble set up the tables, and I say Thought Bubble, the hardworking volunteers, Friday, they come in and they literally set up the tables, and they put like, not blankets, but the covers on some of the people who are more high profile, and they try to do the layout of every hall with like, I don't want to like, we'll go like A, B, and C. So like A, which is the people who are quite famous. We know there's going to be a lot of queues. We know that there's people who find some stuff. So we'll kind of have them in an area where you haven't got, not a lot of footfall, but where you know that a lot of people can kind of hang about without creating too much of a blockade. And that's really nice to see, because it's not just integrating these more profile, higher profile names with everyone else. It's also just logistically it fits, because if you have loads of high profile names in one area, it's just a mess, because everyone's going into that, especially on a morning. As soon as they open the doors, it's like a herd of elephants. People are in, got like the commission money ready. I remember, I think it's Emma by Chile. I was manning the fire exit in one of the years, and she was to my left, and then I had Jamie McKelvey and Kieran Gillen, and then I had Jen Bartel. This was 2018, and I was stood by the fire exit because you have to have someone on it, and Emma was getting loads of people to do commissions at the same time that Kieran and Jamie were getting people to buy their things, and then Jen had her own table, and I was just like, there are so many people in this one area. It wasn't huge. It was just like, I knew that was going to happen, but no one freaked out. It was like really chill. And we opened the fire door, which was nice, because we had to put people outside, but that was planned because of the queues. But it was like everyone, if they saw that there was a queue, some people would be like, I'll come back later. They wouldn't say it, but like the, and then they'd, which is nice, because that's a respect thing.
Oh, completely. And that's, again, that's something Katie said, because she tends to be a little bit more sensitive to like big crowds of people, or like people getting a bit rude and pushy. Whereas I'm just oblivious to everything. Whereas at certain other conventions that are down our end of the country, there is a lot more pushing and people just sort of completely invading your personal space because
Yeah.
they want to get to somewhere, even if it's not anything particularly pressing. It can just be like, oh, I'm just looking at some badges, but somebody else needs to look at this badge right now.
Yeah.
Whereas at Thought Bubble, there was none of that. There was no like shovey stuff, there was no pushing. Everybody was really just like patient and chill, and like you said, people would go, oh, this person's a bit busy, I'll come back later. There wasn't that same sense of like, there was excitement, but it wasn't like a frantic, rude urgency.
Yeah.
Which I thought was just wonderful. Like at no point throughout Thought Bubble did I feel like stressed out by other people.
Yeah.
Whereas some other conventions you spend almost the whole time stressed out by other people.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the people that I met at my first volunteering Thought Bubble, which I think 2018 is probably going to come up a lot. But I could tell that she just looked a bit overwhelmed. So I went over and I was like, hey, you okay? And she was like, I just need some air. So I was like, oh, okay, come over here. And I like opened the door and we got some fresh air and we got to chat. And now we're actually really good friends. I was down in London last year and we met up for lunch and we got to chat and hang out. And obviously we talk on social media and stuff, but it's something that I would never really expect to come from a convention necessarily.
Yeah.
Meeting someone completely randomly, regardless of volunteer or what, just kind of bumping into someone and being like, oh my God, you know, having that connection and then taking it away from Thought Bubble.
Yes.
Well, having it, I mean, it's Marta, one of my friend, and we got a really nice photo. She was in a tux and I was in my green suit. And it was just this really nice moment when we're both like, on. It's just this, there's still that little connection that binds together.
I found that as well. We definitely came away with more sort of friends and like connections in terms of just like social connections and stuff from Thought Bubble than you had anywhere else. I think a lot of times in other places you're just kind of, it's almost like a get in get out mentality of like, oh my God, there's so many people here, everybody's crashing into me. Whereas at Thought Bubble, because you had time and space and air to chat, and I think there's like an encouragement to be social at Thought Bubble. Not that you have to, but there is space to do that rather than being rushed through or pushed along, or, you know, even down to like, we would chat to people during the day that we'd met for the first time and then see them on was it the Saturday evening or the Friday evening, whenever the party was? Saturday. And just that, to be like, oh, hello again. And then you get chatting to them there, and then you kind of come away with friends from that, which we were like not expecting at all, and came away like, oh, friends.
That's it. That's Thought Bubble. It's just it's really sweet and endearing in a way. It's so open. I mean, so I'm going to make this into a really short story. I have a friend up in Newcastle. I love her very much. She's my best friend. She had a friend at Thought Bubble in 2018 that I didn't know that they were friends. So I went to this person because they were wearing a big pink jumpsuit. And I was like, oh my God, someone from Greece just walked in. So I went up and I was like, by the way, you look great. And they were like, oh, thanks, you know. And then we started chatting. Turns out we grew up in the same town. We have a mutual friend, which is a person from Newcastle. And then they're an illustrator, and I'm now in a book club and a D&D group with them.
That's amazing.
And the mutual friend is in the D&D group as well. But it's just that like spark of connection when you're like, oh, this person's really chill and cool. Actually, we can do with this. And then I met someone else last year from the same mutual friend in Newcastle, and it's just so nice to have that. Like, I wasn't waiting for the person because I was busy. But they were like, hey, Sal. And I looked up and I was like, oh my God, because I don't know how long it was that I had wanted to meet them. They were just a person who knew an artist who was tabling, and they were helping them table. And I was like, and it was really sweet. It was just this lovely time of just wholesomeness. And then the whole I mean, I am buzzing every weekend at Thought Bubble. I am just, I can't even, full of adrenaline, just all the time. So every time I see someone, I get so excited. And this year, I was really excited to continue to meet people. Because every year I know I'm going to meet someone new, and I know they're going to be really nice and approachable, and they probably have an interest in comics the same way I do, or they're probably also an illustrator. They do their own work. I mean, I'm backing like 3 or 4 people that I know on Kickstarter because like, stuff is good. So,
Yeah.
like it's just a nice little like my friend made this, and it's not like my instant friend. It's like someone I have really met.
Yes.
A glorious thing, you know?
Yeah. I had that there as well. Like the weirdest thing for me was like you just said, it like brings all these elements together. And I had a few like creators who had tables and stuff say knew me by association with Darkside and told me they'd seen a few people walking around with Darkside tote bags, and I was like, okay, because that's weird, like the other end of the country, kind of like, okay, who is that, who are they, like they must be here.
I'm already crying, tell me where they are.
Yeah. And I managed to find them, and a few of them had said, oh yeah, we came up because you told us about it and all of this, and it was really cool because I had a customer called Phil, who's amazing, and he makes this amazing comic about a little robot that's I just love. On the last day of the shop being open, he gave me a little painting of the little robot standing outside the shop. Oh my god, it was too much. He's amazing, and he has a wife and a son, and his son's really, really sweet. And I told them about Thought Bubble earlier in the year. They'd gone, and while the shop had been open, I'd introduced him to, and everybody pronounces this comic differently. I call it Isola. Some people call it Isola. I don't know what it is, by Brendan Fletcher. Yeah. And I had introduced him to it, and he'd fallen in love with it and had really got into everything Brendan did. And obviously Brendan Fletcher was at Thought Bubble last year, same time this customer was. So I ran into Phil, and I was like, oh, come with me, because I'm friendly with Brendan and I want you to like meet him. Like, and he was like, oh, I don't know, I'm nervous. And I was like, come on. And I dragged him over and got to introduce them and like tell Brendan about his robot comic and all of this. And I was just like, everything has come together. This is lovely. Yeah. And it was like that. Like I ran into a few people that I knew from being in various like groups online from America that had come over for Thought Bubble. Same with creators that had come over that again we'd kind of been adjacent to each other in like comic groups online and stuff. And of course Brendan I had known in the sense of like we had conversations online quite often. Since Batgirl of Burnside started, him and Babs and the one who shall not be named, who was on that creative team. I had
Babs
known
was there at Thought Bubble.
Not last year. She was there a couple of years before. But I'd never met them in person, other than the one who shall not be named. So last year, I was like, Brendan's going to be there. This is really exciting. I've not met him in person. So we're going over and I'm saying to Katie, like, oh, I'm really excited to meet him. I don't know if he'll know who I am. Like, he might not put the face to the name kind of thing. And we got halfway across the room and he looked, pointed at me, gasped, and ran around his table to hug me. And I was just like, I'm so happy. I felt like the proper fanboy thing of like, the person that I admire like knows who I am. And we got to hang out so much over that weekend, and it was so nice. And he kept saying how nice it was that we'd had this online connection for so many years, and now we were actually getting to hang out in person. So it was just amazing.
I know what you mean. It's the weirdest feeling. I mean, I went to a Comic Con, I think my first one was about 2012, because I think I went like 3 years in a row and then had a break. But the first one I went to was down in London, and very different vibe because at least the one, Thought Bubble, when it was in Leeds and then when it was in Harrogate, it wasn't overwhelming. You kind of just head in a direction, you see cosplayers and you're like, well, you know, whereas the one in London, it's at the docks, which is huge. And I remember like walking in, side note, I remember walking in and being like, wow, this is incredible. And then we'd kind of gone down one of the aisles. So they had like aisles off to the side, and then they had like a stage area, and then they had a place that was like the panel area, I guess, was kind of cordoned off.
Mm.
And suddenly there was like a group of just 30 people walking past. And I was like, who are they? And then it was Stan Lee.
Yeah.
And I was like, my tiny brain was like, it was the same thing of just like,
Yeah.
knowing their presence. And it was the most surreal feeling to be in that presence of someone. I mean, we didn't say anything, obviously, but it was just this weird, like, that's a big person.
I physically bumped into Stanley at one of those
Was
cons.
it like a whoops? Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm Bucky.
it was a London Film and Comic Con.
Okay.
And I think it was the one that was touted as like his last ever appearance, kind of thing. And it was crowded, but someone bumped into me, like in the side, like knocked into me, and I turned around to say sorry because I'm British and that's what you do.
Yeah.
And I looked, and my brain went, sorry. Wait, hang on, that's Stan Lee. You just bumped into Stan Lee. And he had about 50 security guards that were like, I guess didn't notice that he'd bumped into me, because they probably would have thrown me like out the door like a javelin. But yeah, but it was a really, really surreal moment. And then he apologized, and I was just like, it's okay, Stanley. What's happening? And just
okay,
like that,
don't worry, Stan, it's fine. It's fine. Stan.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah,
Wow.
very surreal. But
yeah. I mean, within that convention as well, we were talking about this before we started, but some of the tables are just retailers and not necessarily dark side, because I would have had this approach, but it's very much like, here's 100 pop vinyls, here's t-shirts, and it's I understand why they're there to make money, but the difference between a comic convention, which is actually based around comics and the community and arts, because I mean, Thought Bubble has the lead up in the week before, where they have a lot of events within Leeds and within Harrogate, which is really nice because it's more welcoming that way, as opposed to one that's just on the weekend, and then you've got these people with like boxes of stuff that they're just logging. I mean, you've got some a couple of necklaces from some people back in 2012, 13-ish. And it was really cute because they were just making these, like, a lot of Game of Thrones and Captain America, these little bits of, like, you know, things that you would want to buy. But I remember kind of walking around and just thinking, but where's the comics?
Yeah.
The reason that I'm here. I mean, I know that people will sell the collections, and some people special edition, and I got a Miss Marvel statue, which I love, from there as well. But Thought Bubble is so different because it has that at their tables, and like, I mean, I know that Jack Lawrence was doing Transformers commission last year, which was really nice to see, because they will talk to people, but they're all creating something, and like past, and you'd be like, ooh, and it brings you that kind of like, these people are genuinely creating something that they love and enjoy, and that makes me feel good.
I think a lot of other conventions are about the stuff. And a mutual thing of, we all like this stuff, so we want to buy it and we want to look at it. And I think Thought Bubble is more about the people behind it. And I think that's where a lot of the difference comes in. It's not just people flogging stuff to other people who like stuff. It's about the people who are actually making those books in the first place.
Yeah, I feel as though, and I'm not trying to throw them under the bus or anything, I'm stating facts. I should have like a piece of paper like on the news reporter, like an air hostess if I did that.
Yeah.
That's not my intent. So yeah, I feel like for some people who are going to these other comic conventions, it's very much, I'm here to buy a Game of Thrones t-shirt and maybe a box set and probably a couple of Batman comics. But behind that, there are so many talented, famous people who make incredible art and amazing stories and little bits and pieces that you don't necessarily see. That's why I like making things on Kickstarter, because they'll be like, you get a little postcard and you get like a map, and you're like, oh, I get a map. Like it's these things that you don't get with other conventions. It's the bonus.
It is. It's important, I think, to have that. I think
Yeah.
people might not realize they're missing it until they've had it and it's gone away. But I think having that community in comics, and for the sort of people that read comics and enjoy comics, I think is super, super, super important, because often we don't fit in other communities.
Yeah.
Whereas your average person might, everybody has their thing. So you get some people that go to football matches and that's their sense of community, or you know, you have mums with babies that go to mum and baby groups and have their sense of community, all that sort of thing. And
Very
I think
heteronormative.
Yes, and I think people that, yeah, I just realized
No, but it's a good point.
but that's I think people who are into their comics, people who are a little bit different, whatever that word might mean to different people, I think often struggle to find community like that. And I think it seems, at least in my experience, and in my experience as a retailer and just as someone who is in the community themselves, it seems like people who are different, unusual, I always term myself as weird, and I mean that in weird is a good thing to me.
Yeah.
You know, the LGBTQ plus community, anybody that is a little bit different seems to gravitate towards stuff like comics. And I don't know whether it's just to see themselves reflected in stuff, or whether it's just a completely random like correlation, but it seemed like to me, at least with Darkside, an awful lot of my customer base were marginalized people from wherever, people that didn't fit in, people that had never felt like they'd fitted in. And it's all well and good for those people to find a comic, read a comic, enjoy comics, but to then be able to turn that into a community and ongoing support is vastly important. Like, I've had so many people that used to come in the shop who, especially from like school age, who said, I just don't get on with anybody at my school because nobody likes what I'm into, or I don't like what they're into, or I look different, or I fancy a different type of person, or whatever. And they've been able to come to Darkside initially just to go, I like Batman, I'm going to pick up some Batman. But then by coming in, have then met, another person over here who's a bit of an outcast who likes Batman, and they've got chatting, and they've introduced them to this other person, and then it just becomes this growing community of weirdos. And like, I mean that in the absolute fondest sense. Like, it's all the people, all the misfits, all the people that have had issues with other people or issues finding community, have all found this one place. And I think largely in my experience, although you're going to get bad eggs in every community, it's one of the kindest, most loving, most diverse, most welcoming communities that I've ever known or been a part of.
Yeah, totally. I mean, for me, it's hard getting into comics. You don't know where to start. You can't just pick up Batman and be able to decipher what is happening, because it's and I feel like the strong distinction between the big two and indie comics is the fact that indie comics are made by people who aren't represented, who have more inclusive and exciting ideas. It's sort of like
and the freedom to do them.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to think of any comic. The ones that are sort of like exploring sex and gender. Great. There's one that I have. Nope, it's not on my reading. That's my reading list.
Yeah, I've got bookshelves there.
Yeah, and just usually I'd be able to just think of them, but just anything where that person is saying, here's how to kind of categorize how you're feeling, categorizing it in a really general linear way. It's more like, here's something that I've been through, and you can be like, oh, I've been through that too, that's really nice to know that someone else has done it. And then to go to a convention and talk to that person, say, you know, you've helped me through depression, anxiety, gender, finding my sexuality, finding all sorts of things. For them, really nice and humbling. I have quite a few stories from Thought Bubble where things have happened. I can't go into one of them, but the last person that I helped last year was like one of the hardest but most humbling situations I've ever been in, because I was just helping this kid.
Mm.
Her dog was called Conan, the barbarian. I have no idea about anything to do with Conan.
No.
We were just talking about this dog. So I was like, hey, do you want to see pictures of my dog? So I showed her pictures of my dog, because I can't be like, oh, well, you know, in Conan issue 31, he actually face, and like I don't have that knowledge. But that nice little communication, I think, for it to be accessible, especially for kids, because these are people going to be like the future of.
Yeah.
There was a Hilda exhibit last year and the year before, I think, which had all of the like how it became what it is. And I watched it on Netflix, and I was like, for a kid to watch it on Netflix and then potentially get all the comics and the stories, that's their easiest way into something that is so good and so nice.
Oh, it's major. Like they were usually my favorite moments of Darkside, and obviously having mentioned Brendan and Babs earlier, Batgirl of Burnside for me was huge, because at the time it came out, there were a lot less books with female superheroes in, particularly of her age, because she was a little bit younger than like perpetually 50-year-old Batman. And I sold the absolute boots off that book, because I would get young girls come in who are sort of 11, 12, just getting into comics, who kind of know about Batman, but not sure, or aren't really interested in some other stuff. And then I would say to them, well, how about Batgirl? And they'd see that front cover of her taking the selfie in the mirror of their friends, and then the pictures on the back of her in a leggings, biker jacket, and yellow DMs. And it was like
you can do
a thing you can do that's not high heels and like boobs out. And I literally had multiple occasions of these young girls, they just like light up. They're like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then you'd show them the inside, and obviously it's all Babs's art, which is gorgeous. And it's got its real like bright colours as well. And I just sold that book to so many people who would then, the daughters would come back and they'd want the next one, or something else like that. And there's still kids I talk to now, obviously now they're a bit older, who are still reading comics because of books like that, and because they had somewhere to go who would put that book in their hands, rather than a lot of places who either wouldn't do that or wouldn't even stock it to begin with, or think to stock it. And that was something I spoke about quite a lot at the time, that obviously indie comic shops really are only going to sell whatever the person ordering knows about. Which it can be good, because it means you get a really like specially curated selection of stuff, but also can be limiting if they perhaps just don't think about different reader like levels and niches. And I would get that a lot of people would come in and say, oh, I visited this comic shop somewhere else, and they didn't have any of this, or they didn't do any image stuff, or they didn't really have much of anything other than the big two, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, you know, the stuff you'd kind of expect. And exactly that. I had one of my customers that I still speak to now, called Annalise. She's amazing. She came in initially with her mum, and was just blown away by all these options. It wasn't just like, right, you've only got Batgirl to read. It was like, do you like the sound of Gem and the Holograms? Do you like the sound of Lumberjanes? Do you like the sound of Squirrel Girl? And she latched onto Squirrel Girl. And then the next free comic book day rolled around, and she came dressed as Squirrel Girl and looked just like her. It was amazing. Had made the tail and everything. And then a couple of years later, when she started secondary school, her first English project, she decided to do about women in comics. And I was just like, And I
That's
was
so
like,
good.
I know. And I was like, if you need any help, I was like, just email me and I can tell you like stuff to read. And so I was like helping her in her emails. And then she'd email me every week to tell me how she was doing at school. And I was just like, yes,
It's so
this is why I'm
nice.
doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, totally. Like I think the comics experience as a general thing is so different for everyone depending on how you get into it to begin with.
100%.
And for me, there are a few comic stores, I'll say Traveling Man because they are at Thought Bubble and they're there consistently and they always have like a really nice big oval table where they sell all of the comics. But every time I go into a Traveling Man, I think I've been to the ones York and Newcastle and I can't remember the other one. Anyway, probably Manchester. Every time I go in, now I'm friends with the people in Newcastle. I say the people, I'm friends with them most. I go in and I'm like, hey, what's up? But the most I wouldn't say humbling because it really boosted my ego was I went into the one in Newcastle and it was before the first hardback of Die came out, you know, the collection. And I walked in and I was buying Die and I was buying some other bits and pieces and they were like, oh, it's a really great book. And I was like, oh no, I turned off my laptop.
It was
I was really
good.
getting in the zone. And now hold on, let me just.
That was really dramatic.
That was.
I felt like a picture of you holding Die was going to come up just then.
No. That would have been really good. It's great. My webcam's just decided, you know what? Okay, one sec. We can fix this.
We'll just put a picture of Chris Evans in your place.
You know, I don't mind the picture that I have at the moment. Oh, I guess it's,
oh, there we go.
Here we go. Okay. So I'll not do it as dramatically this time, but I basically was just like, yeah, I work on that comic. I wasn't doing it to be like someone who says, I work on that comic, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, yeah, I work on it. Like, and they were like, oh, really? Because I am not Kieran Gillen or Stephanie Hans. So they were like, oh. And I said, yeah, I'm a sensitivity consultant. So one of the characters has one arm. Kieran approached me at Bubble 2018. Yeah, 2018. And he said, hey, I'm going to do this character. She has one hand. I know you because we've kind of bumped shoulders at Bubble consistently. And he said, yeah, I really want you to kind of come on board and tell me how to do this. And I was like, me? And it was great. But anyway. So I went to Traveling Man and said all this, and they were like, oh, great. And then I think when I left, because I'd had such a really nice conversation with these people who were not necessarily selling me something, but who were just people who were interested in it. I sent a tweet and I was like, hey, Traveling Man, love going to Newcastle. Everyone's super nice. Blah, 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 blah. And then like 2 weeks to a month later, Traveling Man was like, hey, look at this Die exclusive cover. It was the golden one of the first like hardback. And I was like, wow, that's great. So the next time I went in and I bought it, I was like, oh, hey, you know, the last time I was in, I was talking about Die. And I was like, yeah, you know, you were the reason we got this cover. And I was like, oh my God, are you serious? Because Kieran had seen the tweet, or Stephanie, someone had seen the tweet.
Oh, yes.
Man, and they got this cover. I mean, I don't know if it's legit. If the people who own Traveling Man are going to come down on me, I'm sorry. But for me, it was just this thing. And now every time I look at it, I'm like, I did nothing. You know what I mean? Like it was like, it sounds really, really egotistical, but it was this moment of just like, oh, towards this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've only experienced Traveling Man at conventions, just because of where they are geographically is nowhere near me. But they're always amazing. They're usually at MCM as well. And they are lovely across the board. And I think they are one of the shops with the right kind of attitude behind it. So when I closed Darkside, I basically said to people, I'm going to make a list of comic shops that are like Bucky approved, because a lot of my customers were like, can you recommend anywhere? Should I go here? Should I go here? And I knew there was some, and I'm not going to name names, although I'd love to. There were some that I absolutely did not want to recommend. So I was
I
like,
know a couple.
So I was like, to counter that, I will recommend some. I think you should go to these. And I will always say to people, there is no reason you should be unless it's something that's like out of print, your local comic shop can't get it. There is no reason you should be buying graphic novels or comics from Amazon. Literally, unless it is like they can't get it, and they've like, I quite frequently would say to people, I can't get that, buy it off of Amazon, or this is out of print, or Diamond don't have any and aren't getting any, get it from Amazon. I would even say, I would often give people the chance when it came to a lot of like bigger books, like big compendiums and stuff. I would say, look, Amazon are selling it cheaper than I can order it in for. If you want to get it from me, it'll be this much, but I'm letting you know it's a lot cheaper on Amazon. And 9 times out of 10, they'd go, thank you for telling me that, but I would rather get it from you and pay the extra to support you, which is amazing. So I will always say to people, try your local comic shop first. And the amount of people that are like, I haven't got one. And I'm like, no, you have, because basically all of them will do mail order. So pick one, throw a dart at a map and pick one and set up an order with them. So Traveling Man were on my list of ones I recommended, and I've got to shout out OK Comics in Leeds as well. Because I get my singles from them and graphics via mail order from them, and they're amazing. And they're another shop that has the right attitude behind it and is doing it for the right reasons. And I think, especially at the moment, I closing Darkside was without a doubt the worst thing I've ever done. Like, in terms of the worst thing I've ever experienced, I don't think I'll ever be over it. However, I do not know how comic shops are holding on through everything that's happening at the moment. I cannot even fathom the stress. Like, it's no secret that comic shops, it's not the most profitable business. There's a long running joke that how much does it take to open a comic shop? Well, take 10 grand and throw it on a fire, because that's, no one's getting into it to make money on it. The margins are rubbish. The industry is antiquated and terrible in terms of supply and demand stuff. I could go on about that forever, but I cannot fathom trying to deal with COVID and being locked down, and people obviously not being able to spend money like they used to. And there was no free comic book day this year, which is like the biggest event of the year. That's the event that the income from that gets you through the rubbish start of the year. They're probably not going to have the same Christmas rush. I miss Darkside every day, but I do not miss how stressful this year must be for small comic shops. So please, if you need comics and graphic novels, especially with Christmas, please just pick a comic shop and buy them from there. Pick any comic shop, anything that's not Forbidden Planet. Just pick them and give them your money, because they deserve it. And I know that's completely off topic, but the community that we've been talking about literally wouldn't exist without some of these comic shops. The comics
are all still small.
Yeah, exactly.
They're in small. I mean, the one in York was in a Matchbox, basically, and then they went kind of further down, and now they're in a really lovely kind of, at the beginning it kind of is like an oval shape, and then it backs up, and then it backs up again. One in Newcastle's the same. It kind of has a little bit, and then it backs up, and then it keeps going. And it's lovely because it's like, it's still small. It's not Forbidden Planet. The one in Newcastle, huge building. The first floor has no comics. It's the extra bits. It's like they have a wall for like the statues, like the t-shirts, and then the key rings, and then the mugs. And when you go downstairs into the basement, reams of comics.
Yeah.
You have to go. I didn't even know the basement was there until I was like, there's a basement? And then I went, oh, this is where everything is. Whereas Traveling Man, walk in and it's like, here's all the, weekly
deals,
and here's like a recommended shelf, and then maybe here's some like statues, and then here's the LGBT.
There's just more thought in it.
Absolutely, there is, and it's beneficial for them to put that thought in, because it's easier for you to walk in and go, oh wow, they've got like a recommended.
Yeah.
This is cool, and then you don't feel like, oh.
Exactly that.
Yeah. And I mean, the comics side of things is always interesting to me, because it also creates a nice conversation when I'm talking to people. So I'm running a Die RPG playthrough next Friday for the D&D group that I have that's unrelated to my queer book club D&D. So I have queer book D&D group, and then I have my work friends group. And it was really strange, is because my friend from work, we hadn't really spoken before, because I'm not very social at work, because don't talk to me before my morning coffee. She had these little like keyring thing of the Mighty Nine, and I was like, oh cool, Jester keyring. She's like, oh thanks. And then we got talking about Critical Role and blah 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 blah, which is also a great community. And then from there we started hanging out at lunch, and then we talked on Facebook, and then mid to late last year we started a D&D group, and then we've continued it through lockdown, which has been super nice.
Amazing.
But it's nice to have things that aren't connected still be connected. So it's still strange for me to have like a book club D&D group, which includes the illustrator who I had a mutual friend from in Newcastle, and then the work one, because then I can be like, hey guys, I know that you'll appreciate blah blah blah. I mean, the work D&D group recommended Thirsty Sword Lesbians RPG on Kickstarter, and I was like, nothing has ever been more tailored to me specifically than Kickstarter. So as soon as I was like, £500 in the stock of this. I was immediately on.
I saw the ad for that and was like, Sal?
Literally. And I keep seeing, because obviously I follow them and stuff, but I keep seeing things on Instagram, and I'm like, look at this. Like, look at it. It's so good. I don't think it's quite finished yet. It might have finished by the time this comes out, but I wouldn't have known that unless my D&D like, this is very much in her area. And that's nice. It's nice.
Arguably my greatest achievement in terms of like community and meeting people via the shops and comics and stuff is I met Katie through the shop. So I met my other half through the shop because she came in and I was like, she's pretty, I hope she's gay. And then it took me several months of trying to figure that out. I was like, the hair says gay, but the long fingernails say straight.
Like, how am I gonna be like, oh, hey, do you like queer comic?
Yeah, I tried. It took a while, but I figured it out. Obviously.
All the time she was like, hey, Bucky, I'm gay. And you were like, yay.
Well, the thing, we've joked about this because when she initially came in, she came in with her best friend. And her best friend has like bright green and purple hair, and one side of it's shaved. She has short fingernails. She wears a lot of like checkered shirts. And I was like, out of these two, probably law of averages, only one of them's gay. I'm pretty sure it'll be the one with the shaved head.
Very stereotypical gay. You're like,
100%.
Yeah, I see you.
Yeah, I was like, right, so it must be her. So this Katie girl, it can't be her. Lo and behold, it was. I win. Both gay.
Wouldn't it be funny if the one that you assumed was gay was like,
super straight.
And you were like, on what planet?
Yeah, can you tell everybody else because the outward signs say gay?
Yeah.
But yeah.
But that's what I enjoyed. I mean, it doesn't seem like a huge deal, but last year when I wore the suit to the con party, it was originally because I saw the suit and I'm very much trying to get into the like forest witch kind of vibe. This comes back to I promise. But I bought it and I was like, oh, this will make a nice interview suit. But I'd never worn a suit in my life. As a woman, I'd never considered a suit to be a thing that I would ever wear. But then I was like, I might as well mess around with my gender a little bit because why not? I mean, I know that suits, long,
Yeah.
be had at some point. Anyway, so when I went to the MidCon party with this suit on, I was very just like, I know I look good, but I don't know how other people are going to take it. And I don't know where that thought came from because everyone was so like, oh my God, you're wearing a suit, you look great. The year before, I'd worn a pink and blue and white stripy dress. So for me, going from like one feminine extreme to a kind of masculine extreme was weird. But everyone there was so nice. And I was like, I love it here. Everyone's great. I feel so accepted for this minuscule act of a thing. And it was the nicest, humbling experience I ever had in my life. And I would fully recommend Thought Bubble. I recommend to literally everyone.
Yeah, we literally got back and the next day booked the hotel for this year. Like, we were instantly like, cool, yep, we're going every year. Like, this is 100% a thing that we're going to do. And I don't think we've had that reaction to anything. And I had people say to me, it was like, it had the same feel that Dark Side had. And we said the same thing, that it had that like community vibe. And for us, it was just like an instant, yep, cool, we're going next year. And I know, like, to people down this end of the country, it might seem a million miles away, because it did before I'd gone, but it's really not. And it's so worth going. And if you go properly, like book a hotel or an Airbnb or something, take a load of books that you want to get signed, and like do it properly, because it's the absolute best. Like, it's essentially what I was looking forward to this year. And as soon as all this crazy stuff happened and it was like, oh, we're not gonna be able to do it, I was like, 2020 is ruined.
Absolutely. I was exactly the same. As soon as like March, April, it was sitting and looking out the window, and the window's over there. I remember looking out the window and just being like, oh. And I remember like having a bit of a cry, because so many of my friends that I don't see, because they're all over the place, we're going, and there's people there who I haven't yet met, but who I've talked to in between.
Yeah, me too.
They were there last year, I didn't know them, and this year we were going to meet, and it's the most heartbreaking thing. And I don't think I've felt that level of, not commitment, but connection and emotion towards a weekend of a space of these people. Because the first time that I went, recommend this to everyone, first time that you go, just book a hotel that's close by, because mine was 20 minutes by bus the first year, and that was a nightmare. Book one that's close by, just take all the stuff that you want to get signed, make sure you've got more money than you think you're going to need. And you see things and be like, I kind of need to buy this. And then after that, if you want to volunteer, go ahead. It's one of the best things I've ever done in my entire life. And then just have fun. It's from day one to Sunday night. Fun. Yeah. Absolutely.
It is amazing.
Should we wrap up?
I think so. I feel like we should wrap up with something that, if we continue forward with any kind of Bucky and Sal ramblings, any kind of podcast type thing, I think we spoke about ending on a, I'm trying to think of a PG FMK, or as I called it, Buck, marry, Sal.
Yes.
Which doesn't make any sense, but I think you get the point.
I think I really want to apply it to comics retailers, but I don't want to get publicly lynched. But
I was literally going to say the same thing.
It would be 100%. I'd marry Darkseid, and I'd probably have like a lifetime connection with Traveling Man, and I'm not going to say who I'd get rid of, but it would be that, like, it would be a really nice polyamorous relationship between Darkseid and Traveling Man.
Okay, I like that.
Really nice, communicative, great time for everyone, basically.
You see, I don't know if I can say my own shop.
I mean, you can, because it's still connected to What we,
If I can say my own shop and that's not terrible, then I would marry Darkseid because I feel like we're already married. We are one and the same.
you're already in the partnership. I'm just kicking you out.
Yeah. I would Buck OK Comics because quite literally they've always done me right. And I'd kill Forbidden Planet. I'm just gonna say it.
Braver than I. Braver than I.
Yeah, I don't think they're doing anything good. So
I would put them through therapy, and that's not because I'm training to be a counselor. That is me saying I would sit them down and be like, "So what are you trying to get from this?" Like,
and then you'd have to kill them. It's the rules.
Because I couldn't. I'm too much of a wuss. I couldn't kill anyone. It's too. I'm too gay for that. I'm too gay to kill someone.
You could
hire someone from this.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been a blast. If anyone who is watching this wants to see more, let us know. I'm going to put our social media links somewhere. But also, if you have a name or what you think this could be, we are absolutely taking suggestions because we had a great one and it's been wrenched from our grip.
It has.
Someone else. So yeah, please let us know.
Yeah, if you have a good idea for a name, we can talk about literally anything.
Or anything you want us to talk about. We're pretty intelligent, as I'm sure you've heard from this conversation. We're smart people.
We're definitely going to have to do a horror themed episode because the potential Buck, marry, Sal's for horror are extremely fun to dissect.
Yes, and I need to get into watching films for the first time, which I think would be a good reaction to you of seeing them.
Yes.
Basically every day for your entire life.
Yes.
We're born and we're like, here's Halloween.
Yeah, yeah, literally.
Yes. And you said I could base my whole life around Mike Myers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's him.
Yes. There we go. All right. Well, this has been a blast.
It has.
Yeah. This has been great. So thanks for watching. Please support Thought Bubble and all your local comics retailers and also people in your community. Especially the kids, because we need it.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Well, bye, everyone.
Bye.